18 years, told a tribunal that when he exposed the racist teachings, the school's headmistress, Dr. Sumaya Al-Yusuf, lied on television, insisting that hateful passages had never been taught in the school. Under public pressure, the academy eventually agreed to destroy the 2,000 books, but not before making photocopies. The Washington-based Center for Security Policy published a report this week that 3 in 4 US mosques teach anti-West extremism and promote Sharia. That same report gave proof that many of the Islamic centers in the West are operating under the auspices of Saudi Arabian government and the Egyptian Islamic Brotherhood. In Muslim communities in the West, wives and daughters are beaten for disobedience or for adopting Western attitudes or style of dress. Girls are killed for having boyfriends in a horrific practice called honor killings, where the girl's mother is intended to restore the honor of her male relatives whom she has shamed. Just such a killing took place in Texas in January of this year, where 2 beautiful teenage girls were killed by their father for having American boyfriends. This incompatibility is not just confined to the events of September 11, where thousands were killed in the name of Islam, or the bombings that followed in London or Madrid, or the murder of my colleague on an Amsterdam street. It's also the current president of Iran, who is actively pursuing development of a nuclear bomb after repeatedly promising to wipe Israel off the map in conferences where he denies the Holocaust. It's Saudi Arabia, home to the holy shrines of Islam, which is financing millions of madrasas or schools, Quran schools, throughout the world, where they promote not only the teachings of Muhammad, but also hatred towards America, Israel, and other Western countries. We are hounded by demands such as editing out the 3 little pigs because it's considered offensive to Muslims. It should not be shocking that all this has induced the Bishop of Canterbury to make the imprudent remark that Sharia is unavoidable in Britain. This is what we are facing, and if we do not shake off our fear of being labeled intolerant or Islamophobic and see Islam for what it is, then we are in trouble. It's not just the bombs and the textbooks describing Jews and Christians as pigs and monkeys, but also the mistreatment of women and girls, of wives and mothers, rights here within our Western liberal societies, where women, girls, are supposed to enjoy equal rights and opportunities and should be protected from such treatment. Recently, I wrote an article in the New York Times calling on the moderate Muslims of the world to stand up for their principles of good conscience and peace. I called on them to denounce the prosecution of the teacher in Sudan who allowed her students to name a teddy bear Muhammad and thus face the possibility of being lashed, to denounce the whipping of a girl in Cardiff who was gang raped, then punished for having been alone with a man who was not her relative. Later she was condoned by the king. Now let me ask you, when was the last time you heard a joke about Christians or Jews? When was the last time someone was killed for making such a joke? It's clear that we have become afraid of the consequences of criticizing this one religion, and thus we are voluntarily sacrificing our freedom of expression, and we are not demanding that universal human rights be extended to Muslim women and girls even when here. And as we've seen, the threat of violence is real, and I understand the fear that it incites. I live with it every day. And every day I make a choice to speak my mind, to stand up for the principles that I believe in, the principles of freedom, to speak out against human rights violations being perpetrated in the name of Islam. And I'm not alone. There are many other brave individuals faced with the threat of violence and death for speaking out against these demands and against these violations. We must protect the principles upon which our societies are based, and we must especially protect the freedoms of conscience and free expression. We cannot take for granted that anyone living in America or Europe has the freedom to choose which religion to belong to and which religion not to belong to. All collectivist movements, and Islam is not different in this sense, first seek to destroy the freedom of expression. We must never, never give them that chance. I'll now take your questions.